Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us here today. This is the section that is called The Journey from Small Acorns, and we have to acknowledge Stand because we did steal that title from them for this one. What we're doing here is we're talking to some of our grant holders over the last 8 years and hoping to give a little bit of an insight about their journeys and about the Life Changes Trust's journey. So we have Graham Galloway from Kirrie Connections, who I'm going to be speaking to first. And then we're going to bring in Breda Seaman from Dementia Friendly Dunblane. And then at the end, we have Jerry King from Stand and Ruth McCabe from Stand. So I'm going to start off with Graham, and Kirrie Connections and the Life Changes Trust started working together in 2014 when you were actually still called the Kirriemere and Dean Area Partnership. So I wanted to ask you, what, if anything, has changed in Scotland in that time for people living with dementia and unpaid carers of people with dementia, and what still needs to change?
Well, I think one of the really obvious things and why we're here today about something that's changed is the trust happened, and the work the trust has done across Scotland has just impacted so many thousands of lives. The really incredibly innovative work that the trust has nurtured and developed has had clear impacts, and we see it every day here at Kirrie Connections. The trust has supported us since 2014, as you said, and that really has enabled us to grow as an organisation and offer the support that we offer here to kind of develop in ways that we never possibly could have imagined back when that initial grant application went back in 2014. For me, I think one of the really key things that happened is that we were obviously part of the first cohort of dementia-friendly communities back then. And when we put that first application into the Life Changes Trust, there were no people with dementia involved in that application at all. It came about through the community partnership, as you said. There were people who, on the partnership, myself included, who had personal experience of dementia in their families. But we didn't go out and speak to any people with dementia at that point, I don't think. I think we got lots of very dry figures around the numbers of people we thought had dementia in the local area, the fact that Kirriemere had an older than average population and therefore there would be a higher incidence of dementia. But we didn't actually go out and speak to any people with dementia and ask them, what do you think about what we're proposing? By the time we came to the second application we put into the trust, that had changed completely, and we were involving people with dementia in absolutely everything that we did. And I think for me, that really is one of the key things that's happened over those 8 years, is the move away from discussions around being dementia friendly to discussions around being dementia enabled, which is something that comes through really strongly in the toolkit that the trust obviously produced around developing dementia friendly communities. And I think this really is absolutely exemplified by the work that Jerry and Irene and Ruth are doing with Stand, but also the work that Ron Coleman and Deepness are doing up in Stornoway and all over Scotland. So for me, I think, there's lots of incredible things that have happened. The 80-90 projects the trust has funded. What's it sitting at now, Colm, in total?
Oh, you've put me on the spot. Oh, it'd be, I mean, from individual grants all the way to projects, it's hundreds. It's hundreds and hundreds. And because we would include the individual grants as as much important as some of the bigger projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the small grants program, again, absolutely exemplifying the involvement of people with lived experience in deciding where those grants went. And then with the same thing happening with the other funds, the Final Legacy Fund, we know obviously had a panel of people who are living with dementia judging it. And that to me really sums up that journey that not just the trust, but all of Scotland has been on, thinking about how do we properly meaningfully involve people, not that kind of tokenistic ticky box exercise, but actually embedding people in the process. And certainly with Kirrie Connections, that's something we're always striving to improve on. We have a board member who's living with dementia. We have a board member who is a carer of someone with dementia, but for me, that is always a process. We're always looking to improve that involvement in absolutely everything we do on both a local level and certainly on a national level around the development of meeting centres, because the NEEC Centre network is obviously starting to blossom now. We should have some interesting news very soon about the new fundees from the Legacy Fund, but I think by my calculations, we could potentially be looking at over 10 meeting centres funded across Scotland by the middle of this year. And that, I think, again, is one of the real legacies that we have, is this kind of culture where we're all working together. We all know we're working to the same aims. We're sharing knowledge, we're sharing information, we're sharing support. And I think that is really going to stand the test of time in Scotland and make sure that the local community support that has been so vital, that the Trust has nourished.
And so we started working with you in 2014, and I'm now going to switch to Breda, because Breda, if you remember, our relationship with Dementia Friendly Dunblane started 5 years ago with a telephone conversation in spring 2017. And that actually led to an application that was not successful, but you picked yourself up from that disappointment, and we've actually offered you 3 grants since then. So can you tell us a bit about the journey of Dementia Friendly Dunblane and the Dunblane Development Trust, and the challenges and the successes you've achieved in that time?
Yes, we set up in January of 2017, Dementia Friendly Dunblane, and we were quite ambitious but very naive when we started. Hence why 6 weeks after starting, we've submitted the application, because we thought, let's just see what happens. And I think from the advice that we got back from you, Colm, you know, and the tremendous support, we were encouraged to apply again, which we did, and we were successful. I think on our journey has just been amazing. From that time of getting that grant, it just opened so many opportunities for us as a group. I think that what we did first was we did spend time looking at the evidence base for dementia-friendly communities, because we soon realised there wasn't a blueprint in Scotland. It had to be up to each individual community. But I like to follow some sort of a framework. And what we did was we found the Joseph Rowntree York dementia-friendly community, and we kind of looked at their four-pillar model, and kind of thought, well, that's a useful start, because at first it seemed quite overwhelming that how can we achieve all of this? So the 4 cornerstone model looks at the people, the places, the environment, and your resources, but we also chucked in activities. So we held some focus groups with older people, not particularly with dementia, but just groups of older people. And what they said was they wanted a place to go to have some fun and meet their friends. And that's when the Memory Cafe started. And we got a grant from Stirling Council Community Fund, just under £2,000 to set that up. So that was the start of our cafe and our journey.
A very small sum of money.
It was a very small sum of money, because all we needed at that time was to pay for the overheads of the expenses of the room that we were hiring. But the Dunblane Development Trust, we started to build a relationship with them, and they very kindly gave us the room rent-free for 3 months as a pilot group, so that we could see how we were doing. And after the 3 months, we were invited to be a formal working group of the Dunblane Development Trust. And that got us over many hurdles, because we weren't a community interest group. We had no fiscal arrangements or policies or procedures, but by becoming part of Dementia Friendly or Dunblane Development Trust, they had all that infrastructure that we could link in with.
And very, very quickly, from that conversation in 2017, you're in a very different place now, because you're in the process of, alongside Kirrie Connections, becoming a meeting centre.
That's right. Yes, I think, well, we're eternally grateful to the grants from Life Changes Trust, because I don't think we would be as far down on our journey as we are now. And I think appointing a project leader and having somebody in a paid position gives a lot more kudos, particularly when you're networking with key stakeholders and whatnot. You're on a much more level playing field than if you're just a volunteer.
And having spoken first to Kirrie Connections in our longer journey with them, and you know, it's been a slightly shorter but still a 5-year journey with Dementia Friendly Dunblane. That brings us to Stand, which I want to point out is called Striving Towards a New Day, which is a fantastic and appropriate name for what I think is a new type of organisation, and also a new idea of what a dementia community is. So first of all, Ruth, can you give us a very quick history of Stand and how it came to be?
I think actually, Colm, Jerry should actually tell you that, because Jerry was the main instigator of Stand.
He was the pioneer.
Well, he was. Well, it was very much his idea. So I think Jerry should tell you that story.
Jerry, please do.
Thank you, Colm. The peer support group Stand was conceived out of the need, really, for me to talk to somebody who was also living with a diagnosis of dementia. In Fife, when I was diagnosed, there was absolutely nothing at all for people under the age of 65. Everything was all the support was for people 65 and over. So it was kind of at a loss. And that's when I approached our post-diagnosis support nurse, Maggie, and asked if I could speak to some of our other clients, just because I needed to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
And what happened was there was about 15 or 20 couples met at the Alzheimer's Scotland Centre in Kirkcaldy one day for a cup of tea, some cake. From there, this was people who had never ever met each other in their life. Like, they came in, and within 5 minutes we were talking, laughing, having a good blether, and from that day on, Stand was formed. And it has been an absolute godsend in Fife.
Well, I want to pick up on that because, again, it's that very, very personal, very community-based thing. But I would say that you are not a passive member of the group. It's very much a case that, I mean, for example, last year alone, you co-chaired our community and dementia in Fife events. You also are our learning network coordinator for our regional grants in Fife. At no point have I ever seen you as a passive member of the group that just sort of turns up for tea and cake.
No.
I wanted to ask you in particular, as somebody living with dementia, what's it like to be a creator and a leader and a member of their community and a representative of an organisation like Stand? What does it mean to you personally?
That's a good question, Colm. What Stand has done for me is it's introduced me to people like Life Changes Trust, Age Scotland, Kirrie. It has opened up my whole world completely. It has given me an increased sense of well-being, something that I lost completely when I was diagnosed. It has given me back my feeling of self-confidence, which again was lost when I was diagnosed. And now I feel as if I'm actually contributing to society again, and leading a very, very good life with dementia. When I was first diagnosed, I thought it was the end of the world. But because of Stand and all the organisations that I've met through Stand and who have supported us, it's not the end. It's been an amazing beginning. It's been an amazing journey. I've met some fantastic people. I'm thoroughly living a great life, to be honest.
That is the perfect way to end. I don't want to say any more after that. Thank you all very much, not only for turning up here today and speaking with me, but thanks for everything you've actually done over the years. We constantly say all we do is kind of give out money, but it's
Mhm.
all the work is done by the projects, and we're looking at years and years and years of work that you've done. So thank you all very, very much indeed. And even though we're pulling down the shutters, you'll still be here.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.